Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam review class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नितिनामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. We are discussing from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and last time we discussed the first chapter in which Shukdev Goswami answers the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj had asked two questions. What is the duty of a person who is about to die? And what is the duty of everyone? And second question, what should be heard, remembered and chanted, and what should not be heard, remembered and chanted? So in response to these two questions, Shukdev Goswami described beautifully that bhakti is the only goal of all people and of a person who is about to die. And he said, what should not be heard? Shrotavyadini Rajendra Ninam Santi Sahasrasah Apashyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihmedinam. People have hundreds and thousands of topics to talk about. That should not be the way in which the time should be spent, because time is very, very limited. Everybody has a limited time, and one should spend his time in cultivating Krishna consciousness. And then he established the supremacy of devotional service. But then he saw that there are others who are in the assembly, those they were yogis, karmis, jnanis. So to establish the supremacy of bhakti, first he described the other processes. He described the process of ashtanga, jnana. He described the object of meditation of a yogi who is still having material desires and who has no material desires. So all this we heard in the first chapter. Now in the second chapter, which is entitled The Lord in the Heart. So in this chapter, four things are discussed. The yogi, the object of meditation of a yogi with material desires, and that is Virata Rupa. So the yogi who has material desires, he meditates on the universal form of the Lord. And in this chapter, the Virata Rupa meditator, how he attains perfection, that is described. The object of meditation, that of a detached. Recording in progress. So the object of meditation of a detached yogi is also described, that is Paramatma. And how the Paramatma meditating yogi attains perfection, that will be described. And then in the end, Shukdev Goswami, after describing all these things, he gives his own opinion about what should a dying man do, and that will be the process of devotional service. So first, Shukdev Goswami gives the example of a person who attained perfection by meditating on the Virata Rupa, that is Brahmaji. So Shukdev Goswami in the first verse, he tells that formerly in the beginning of the creation, uh, actually prior to the creation, Brahmaji, he was meditating because he had forgotten how to meditate. This is one of the days of Brahma, which Shukdev Goswami is meditating, because at the end of the day of Brahma, Brahma goes to sleep, and Brahmaji's night is equal to day. And when Brahmaji is sleeping, all the three planetary systems, lower three planetary systems, Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, they all get submerged in the waters of devastation. And then when Brahmaji gets up again, he has to do the entire creation. So Prabhupada also writes that this is one of the days of Brahma. It is not that every day Brahmaji forgets how he created. It happens sometimes. Some days he forgets. Some days, he goes up and down the lotus, finding the root of the lotus. And the lotus also doesn't come every day. These are some of the details. The day in which the lotus comes, that is called Padma Kalpa. Kalpa is the day of Brahma. So these are technical details which will be described again and again in the second canto. So Padma Kalp means the kalpa in which the lotus comes out from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Brahmaji is born on that lotus. So lotus is not the permanent residence of Brahmaji. In some days, lotus comes up. So in one of the days, Brahmaji forgot how to create. So Shukdev Goswami is citing that. So Brahmaji, when he forgot, he meditated on the Supreme Lord, and he made his intelligence very, very firm and determined. So therefore, he was able to please the Lord, and he was able to recreate. So Srila Prabhupada, he describes that this determination to practice devotional service. So what Brahmaji did was basically devotional service. And when one performs his devotional service very steadily with determination, then Lord becomes pleased, and then he gives his mercy. So Vyavasaya Buddhi is very, very important. Vyavasaya Buddhi. So the word used is Vyavasaya Buddhi. So one has to practice determination. One has to practice bhakti with all the determination. That is called Vyavasaya Buddhi. So Prabhupada writes, the forgetfulness of a living being can be counteracted by the process of meditation, process of devotional service. And as soon as the forgetfulness is removed, the intelligence becomes very, very firmly established. And as the knowledge becomes reestablished by the process of devotional service, one can render service with steadiness. And then he can come out of the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada gives a definition of what is liberation. So Prabhupada tells that liberation means getting out of the slumber of forgetfulness and becoming situated in the process of loving devotional service. That is actually liberation. So one can be liberated while still he is in this body. Jivan mukta sa uchyate. So therefore, Prabhupada writes that the service Brahmaji did after becoming free from forgetfulness was devotional service. But it is very much contrary to the current conception of service. So Prabhupada writes, people in the world, they want to do so many of the altruistic activities, but they don't serve the Supreme Lord. So all the knowledge should ultimately bring one to the process of devotional service. As Bhagavad Gita also Krishna says in the 13th chapter, there are 20 points of knowledge. And in that, Acharyas, they write, the most important point is Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini. So 13.8, 9, 10, 11. Amanitvam madambhitvam ahimsa shantirarjavam acharyopasanam saucham stairyam atmavinigraha indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jaravyadhi. It goes on. So 20 points of knowledge are described in that. Mai cha ananya yogena. bhaktir avyabhicharini. So to render unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Lord, that is the root of all the knowledge. So basically, Srila Prabhupada writes that as soon as one starts rendering devotional service, he understands that Krishna is a source, Krishna is a proprietor of everything. That is how a Virat Rupa worshipper advances. So a Virat Rupa worshipper, he sees this entire creation as the form of the Lord, and he understands that everything in this creation is coming from the Supreme Lord. So therefore, I should use it in the service of the Lord. That's how a Virat Rupa worshipper advances. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. That's what Ishopanishad describes. Everything is a property of Krishna, and whatever is allotted to us, we should use that in service of Krishna. So it is very interesting that Srila Prabhupada, he describes that there are 10 offenses against the holy names. Many times he is described in many purports, and we know the 10 offenses against the holy names. One of them is Shruti Shastra Ninda, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures, which are in the persons of Vedic version. So we may sometimes think that we never blaspheme Vedic scriptures. Who will blaspheme Vedic scriptures? But it is important to note that as devotees, we may not blaspheme or criticize devotional scriptures. We will never blaspheme Bhagavatam, we will never blaspheme Ishopanishad or whatever scripture Srila Prabhupada has given. But we may criticize the Karma Kandi literatures. We may criticize Gyan Kand literatures. So that's what it means to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures. So all these scriptures, either Karma Kanda literatures or Jnana Kanda literatures, they are meant for a certain section of people who are not yet ready to take to devotional service. So this Virat Rupa worship, it is described in the Jnana Kanda literatures. It is described in the Karma Kanda literatures. So it should not be criticized, it should not be rejected. We should not blaspheme these scriptures, telling that, oh, Bhagavad Gita also tells, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhava Arjuna. Krishna is telling, oh, Arjuna, give up all the Vedas. Yes, Krishna is telling to Arjuna, but that does not mean that everybody should reject the scriptures, the Vedas, because they are meant for a particular type of people and they should not be rejected. So after describing the example of a person who attained liberation, who attained perfection by the practice of Virat Rupa meditation, now Shukdev Goswami, he wants to touch upon the topic of Karma Kand, because he wants to establish the supremacy of devotional service by comparing it with Gyan and Karma. So unless you compare with something, you cannot say that, oh, this thing is the best. So therefore, Parikshit Maharaj asked a question, okay, what should a dying man do? So Shukdev Goswami is now giving the opinions of some of the people, some of the sages who were in the assembly, who were interested in Karma Kand, because they were thinking, oh, you can do karma alone and then you can go to heaven. So, in response to this question, this opinion, Shukdev Goswami says, actually, Vedic scriptures, they are, so very bewildering, because they tempt people to go to heavenly planets. So you do this type of yagya, you can go to heaven, you can get a good wife, you can get good health. But actually, they are all bewildering. They are all illusory heavenly pleasures. So now Shukdev Goswami is heavily rebuking a person who takes to karma kand process. As Bhagavad Gita also says, Yamibam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitah vedavadarata partha nanyad astiti vadinah कामात्मान स्वर्ग परा जन्म कर्म फल प्रदाम प्रिया विशेष बहुलाम भोग ऐश्वर्य गतिम प्रति. So Bhagavad Gita also Krishna is saying people who are calm atma, their atma life is for enjoyment. They want to go to heavenly planets and they get attracted by the flowery words of the Vedas. But the problem is nothing is permanent in this world. Even if you go to heavenly planets, you have to come down. You have to Shine Punya Martya Lokam Vishanti, you have to come back again in this material world. So therefore, what is the use of doing all the yajna and the tapasya and charity to go to heaven? So Srila Prabhupada also writes that none of the universe, none of the planets in this universe is free from birth, old age, disease, and death. It is everywhere. It is like merry-go-round. Sometimes you are up, sometimes you are down. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartino arjuna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Real happiness is in the kingdom of God, Prabhupada writes. So therefore, Shukdev Goswami is trying to tell Parikshit, oh, do not aspire to go to heavenly planets. Because you'll have to come back again. You go to the spiritual world from where you will not have to come back. So therefore he tells that one should not work hard to enjoy sense gratification in this world, because all the sense gratification of this world is temporary. Wherever you go in this world, in this universe, you will get sense gratification. Why to endeavor for sense gratification? So intelligent person works only to keep his body and soul together. One should not endeavor so much for sense gratification. Just like Prahlad, he also tells to his friends that Sukham maindriyakam daitya dehinam dehayoginam sarvatra labhyate daivad yatha dukkham mayatnatah. He says, oh my friends, just like you don't endeavor for distress, but still it comes, why are you endeavoring for happiness? It will come. Tat prayaso na kartavyo yatha ayu vayaparam na tatha vindate shemam mukunda charanambujam. Therefore, tat prayaso na kartavyo. Please do not endeavor for happiness. One should endeavor only for that thing which is not available. That is Mukunda Charana Ambujal, the lotus feet of the Lord Mukunda, which is very, very rare. That's why we heard in the first canto also. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadaha tallabhyate dukkha vadanyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira ramhasa. So therefore, Narad Muni is telling to Vyasadeva in the 5th chapter, 1st canto, Tasyeva hetu, therefore one should endeavor for that which is not available in the 14 planetary systems. Nalabhyate. Because in due course of time, everybody gets happiness. Why to endeavor and struggle for happiness? So Prabhupada writes a very interesting line in the purport. He writes that the whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. It is just a jugglery of names. Whatever we see in the world, whatever we see in the material creation, it is just a jugglery of names. It is all the bewildering creation made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. That's all. So therefore, a devotee who knows it perfectly well, he is not interested in all the unwanted things of this material creation. Because whatever we see in the world, they are just names. Whatever is created, it stays for some time and then it gets destroyed. The great kings, leaders, powerful men, they are just the names in the history. So why one should endeavor for the happiness of this world, which is just a jugglery of names. So therefore, Prabhupada says that the human form of life is very important and one should not waste the time. Avyartha kalatvam. Time is very, very crucial. One cannot get back even a second, even by spending millions of dollars. That's what Prabhupada writes. So therefore, a perfect human civilization is only aimed towards reaching the highest perfection of life, that is devotional service, which is much against the modern civilization, which is just interested in sense gratification. So intelligent people, they do not meditate on the material objects. Kamasya na indriya priti labho jivet yavata जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्तो यश्चेह कर्मभिः. So first canto describes second chapter. Kamasya na indriya priti. One should not endeavor and get money for sense gratification. Then why we should endeavor? Jivasya tattva jigyasa. One should endeavor to know the purpose of life. Then somebody will question, then how will I maintain my body and soul together? So very strongly, Shukadeva Goswami speaking. Satyam chipau kim kashipo prayasair bahau sasiddhe upabarhanai kim satyanjalo kim purudhan pattatrya dikval kaladau satikim dukulai. So in two verses, Shukadeva Goswami very strongly is telling, what is the use of working so hard? What is the use of getting opulent beds? Are there no earthly flats available to lie on? There is no earth available. You can lie down on the earth. What is the use of a pillow? You have hands. You can make them pillow and sleep. What is the use of a utensil or a vessel? You have your palms. Use them. Eat. And what is the use of costly garments? Trees are giving barks. Use them. So Prabhupada writes, when we hear such type of statements, it looks so very extreme. How can we, go back to such things? So Prabhupada, he very nicely reconciles and tells that this does not mean that human civilization should, revert back to animal life, or that does not mean that humans should live naked in the jungles. No, it is not possible. But the important point is, human life should not be spent like animal. Ahara, nidra, bhay and maithun, eating, sleeping, mating and defending, which the animals are also doing. Human life should not be spent in that. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes that idea given by Shukadeva Goswami is that the human life has lots of faculties of intellectual faculty and emotional faculties. We should use them in developing spiritual knowledge. We should use them to connect to God, which is only available in human form. Animals cannot inquire why I am suffering. Animals cannot ask that. So therefore, Prabhupada writes, advancement of human civilization means one should establish our relationship with Krishna. That is the standard of advancement of human civilization. And then Prabhupada writes, today's age people, they are working so hard. And what they are contributing to the society. In the past, great sages and saints, they were living simply in the hut, in the forest, and they were giving such wonderful, work of literature. Just like Vyasdev, he gave such wonderful literatures. And then Prabhupada gives the example of Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, who were prime ministers and finance ministers. They gave up everything. They went to Vrindavan and gave such wonderful literatures explaining the process of devotional service. Charani kim pathina santi dishanti bhiksha चिराणि किं पथिना सन्ति दिशन्ति भिक्षां नैवाङ्घ्रिका परभृतो सरित्वप्यनुशुष्यान् रुद्धा गुहा किं मजितो वाति नोपसन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धन दुर्मधान्धान्. So, he continues, says, are there no torn cloths lying on the roads? Why are you endeavoring to get some new, costly, luxurious cloths? Just pick them up and use them. Use them and put on your body. Naivangripa, somebody may say, Are you are telling that I should give up everything? Are how will I get rid of cold? You are telling me to put tree barks. How will I get rid of cold? He says, are there not torn cloths lying on the street? Put them. Are how will I relieve my hunger? Naivangripa, are there no trees? Are trees not giving charity of fruits? Why are you so worried? Just take the charity from the trees, take fruits, eat them. Just like Krishna tells in the 10th canto, when he goes to forest Vrindavan with all his friends. Pashyaitan mahabhagan parartha aikant jivitan vatavarsha tapahiman sahanto varayantinah. He's telling, just see these great fortunate trees. They are living only for the welfare of others. They don't want anything. They are giving everything for the welfare of others. What they are giving? Patra pushpa falachaya moola valkala darubhi gandha niryas bhasmasti tokmai kaman vitanvate. They are giving everything. They are giving patra, leaf, flower, fruit, shadow, tree bark, sap, everything. They are giving wood. So are there no trees giving in charity? Ruddha guhakim, acha, I'll have to find some water. Are there no rivers? Take water from the rivers and drink. Where will I sleep? I'm afraid of the animals. Are the caves closed? Find some caves and stay in the caves. Ruddha guhakim. But still, if I go in the cave, the animals, tigers still may come. Are you not having faith in the protection of Lord Vishnu? Why are you so much worried? Krishna is there to protect his devotees. Atmanikshepa karpanye shadvidha sharanagati. So Prabhupada, he writes in the purport that Haridas Thakur was living in a cave and there was a python living with him. And it was the smell of the python, the breath of the python was so poisonous that the entire cave was full of the poisonous air. Nobody was even able to enter the cave. So Haridas Thakur, he was just leaving that cave, seeing the predicament of the people because nobody could come and see him. So as he was leaving, Paramatma in the heart of tiger, that snake, that cobra, inspired him to go out. So therefore Prabhupada says, Mare Krishna Rakhe Krishna Mare ke. If Krishna wants, who can save you? And if Krishna wants, who can kill you? If Krishna wants to kill you, who can save you? If Krishna wants to save you, who can kill you? So one should have faith in the protection of the Lord. That's what Shukadeva Goswami is saying. Rakshishyati iti vishwaso. Out of 6 limbs of surrender, Rakshishyati iti vishwaso and gopatritve varnam statha. Have faith in the protection of Krishna. These 2 things will come if we are doing the first 2 things properly. Anukulasya sankalpa pratikulasya varjanam. If we are accepting what is favorable and rejecting what is unfavorable, then gradually we will be purified and then we will develop faith in the protection of Krishna. Kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmandandha. Why, why the people in the renounced order, they are going to, rich people and, flattering them? What is the use? So Prabhupada writes that renounced order of life, they are not meant for begging or living at the cost of others. Renounced order, they are not parasites or sycophant, Prabhupada writes, who are living at the cost of others. Parasites means who are taking from the society but not contributing anything to the society. So Prabhupada very wonderfully writes that the renounced order, they are contributing, they are supposed to contribute to the society in terms of their knowledge, because they are dependent on the householders for their maintenance. It is a duty of a renounced order to give knowledge, enlightenment to the society, not like pseudo mendicants who just live for the sake of maintaining their body, not giving anything in return. They are parasites. And then Prabhupada again gives the example of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, who gave such huge vast amount of literatures. So Prabhupada writes, the first duty of a person in the renounced order, is to give some literary contribution to the society. That means one should educate, give spiritual knowledge to the society. And we can see in the life of Prabhupada, today is the disappearance day of Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, in his life, his entire life was for, writing books. In fact, one time Prabhupada told that I didn't want to come here. Prabhupada was telling to Bhavanand Prabhu. He was not telling about coming to America. He was telling about coming to this material world. Prabhupada said, I didn't want to come here, but Krishna told me, you just go write some books and come back. I will arrange everything. So in his whole lifetime, what was the schedule of Prabhupada? Every day, wherever he would go, he would just, match his watch with that time, start his work. Every day from 12 to 4, he would translate, no matter what happens. So that is the ideal renunciant. So that's why he's saying, Kasmad bhajanti kavayo dhanadurmadanda. What is the use of flattering all the rich people? So then, Parikshit Maharaj may ask, is it necessary for a yogi to search out for the ingredients for worshipping the Lord? So Shukadeva Goswami says, you don't have to go out anywhere. Meditate on the Lord who is there in the heart as super soul. The Lord is there in the heart as super soul. Meditate on that Supreme Lord. It is not necessary to follow any of the other procedures. Just meditate on the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada writes that anyone who wants to get out of the cycle of birth, old age, disease and death, there is only one way. Worship the Supreme Lord. And in all these purports, if you read, these are very technical sections of Bhagavatam, where a person who does not have a inclination for all the technical details, he may get really bored reading all this. But Srila Prabhupada, he does not leave a chance to give the essential message. In every purport, Prabhupada is giving what should be done. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madyaji mam namaskuru. Become my devotee. Krishna is telling, become my devotee, worship me. So Prabhupada is giving, okay, all these things are described, but devotional service is the best way. And then Prabhupada writes that, Lord is everywhere. And that means he's in the temple also. So therefore, what is the problem in going to temple? And then Prabhupada writes, what is the actual temple? People, many times they go to temple just to have darshan of the deities, and then they ask for some blessings and then they return. But many times people ask, you ISKCON people, you spend whole day in temple. What do you do in temple? Prabhupada writes, the holy places of worship, they are meant to give knowledge. That's why Srila Prabhupada, he established Bhaktivedanta Academy for culture and education in all the temples, wherever he established the temples. So these are the centers of learning. And Prabhupada writes, if the temples, they are not giving the knowledge about the Supreme Lord, then what happens? Slowly people become disinterested and their faith gets destroyed. Then the entire civilization becomes godless. So therefore, You know, Prabhupada says that it is our responsibility to give knowledge to everyone. After describing this, Shukadeva Goswami tells one should not hanker for heavenly pleasures. You know, who hankers for heavenly pleasures? Only those who are grossly materialists. They hanker, they reject bhakti, they reject path of liberation, and they engage in sense gratification. Karma kand, jnana kand, keval visher bhand, amrit boli jeva khaye, nana yoni sada phire, tara janma adha pate aaye. You know, so Narottam Das Thakur says karma and jnana, they are like the pots of poison, very strong. If somebody eats that poison thinking it to be nectar, you know what will be the result? Nana yoni sada phire, keep on traveling in various species of life. You know, so anybody who is sane, who is intelligent, he should take to the process of devotional service. And Prabhupada, he very strongly describes that people who worship devatas for sense gratification, they are actually very, they have a limited intelligence. Kamai stai rita jnana, their intelligence is stolen by the material desires. That's why they take to the worship of the devatas. Otherwise, nobody should worship devatas for material reasons. Worship devatas should be worshipped to come close to Krishna. Just like gopis, they were worshipping Katyayani Devi because they wanted Krishna as their husband. You know, so nobody should give up the practice of devotional service. Only an animal will give up the practice of bhakti. Very strongly, Bhagavatam says, Ko nama loke purushartha saravit pura kathanam bhagavat katha sudham apiya karna anjalibhir bhavapaham aho virajyet vina naretaram. Who in this world will give up? Ko nam loke purushartha sarvit. Who in this world who is a seeker of essence will not take to the process of devotional service? Only an animal will not take. Vina naretaram. Naretara means animal. So therefore, one should not take to the process of karma kand. And then he describes the super soul. Now, after describing that, okay, karma kand is not proper, now he starts the description of the object of meditation of a detached yogi. Detached yogi means a person who has no material desires, he wants to enter into Brahman. So therefore now Shukadeva Goswami describes, okay, you should not meditate haphazardly, you should not manufacture your own object of meditation. How to know that actually I am seeing Paramatma, you know? So one should meditate on right object. So what will you see when you meditate on the Paramatma? Kechid swadehantaridavakashe pradeshamatram purusham vasantam chaturbhujam kancharathanga shankha gadadharam dharanaya smaranti. So people who are having no material desires, the yogis, how they meditate? Swadehantar, within their body, within their heart, they meditate on the Supreme Personality who is residing. Pradesh Matram. Pradesh Matram means 8 inches. You know, Chakravarti Thakur writes Pradesh Matram. So it expands from the ring finger to the end of the thumb. You know, so if you do like this, then that is the size of super soul which is there in the heart. It is described. And Purusham Chaturbhujam. He has 4 hands holding Shankha Chakra Gada Padma. That is the form Ashtanga yogi, advanced yogi should meditate on. That is the object of meditation, which is called Dharana Ashraya. Dharana ashraya means the object of meditation of a Ashtanga yogi. And beautifully Shukdev Goswami describes the features of the Lord. He has beautiful eyes, lotus-like eyes, well decorated with golden ornaments. He has, oiled hair, curly hair, hairs are curly, and he's having all the various ornaments, beautiful smiling face, which is very, very pleasing to the devotees. And then he says that the hair, there is one important hair is Neela Kuntalai. So the hairs of the Lord are dark blue in color, just like in Damodar Ashtakam we also sing Idam te mukhambhojam atyanta neelai vritam kuntalai snigdha raktaisha gopya atyanta neelai. So the color of Lord's hair is dark blue. So we should understand that, when we give such comparisons, color of the Lord is dark blue. It is not the dark blue which we have experienced, because Lord is spiritual and the colors are material. But just to have some understanding of how does the Lord look, these analogies and comparisons are given. Actually, Yamuna Charya, he tells that, oh my Lord, after I have got your darshan, I have realized that, the glorification which we offer you, it is actually an insult to you, because you are much, much greater than our glorification. It is as if, if Prime Minister comes in the small town, small village, and the old lady comes, and, she doesn't know who is Prime Minister. So she's told by somebody, he's like Chief Minister, because she knows Chief Minister. So that is not a glorification of Prime Minister, it is demeaning him. But because, the lady has no conception greater than the Chief Minister, so that's why she has to be told, okay, he's like a Chief Minister. Because so we have the conception of the colors of this world, flowers of this world. So therefore Lord is compared to lotus. So Lord is beautifully described, and then he says that, the advanced yogi should meditate on Paramatma. Slowly, slowly, he should increase his intensity of meditation from yam, niyam, pranayam, pratyahar, yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, and pratyahar. After pratyahar, he should meditate on the Lord, dharana. So you should meditate on the general features of the Lord. And in that, when one meditates on the Lord's form is the reservoir of all the benediction. He's Varadaraj, Varadesha. So therefore, when a yogi meditates on the Lord's form, he becomes purified. And then after this, so Prabhupada in the purport, he describes that, the path of impersonalism, again, although the section is describing the path of jnana and ashtanga and how the meditator, ashtanga yogi should worship on the Paramatma feature of the Lord. But then Prabhupada writes, this is very, very difficult. Klesho adhikadarastesham, very, very difficult. And the progress is also very slow. So therefore, why to so Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he describes that this path of impersonal Brahman, it is very, very difficult. Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta asakta chetasam avyakta hi gati dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. As Krishna says in 12th chapter Bhagavad Gita 5th verse, the path is difficult and the end is also not much pleasurable. So therefore Prabhupada writes that why to struggle with so much of the difficult things? Chant the names of the Lord. It is the easiest available for Kali Yuga. And Prabhupada in the purport, he describes very wonderful things. He says, as a person meditates on the Lord, one gets purified of the anarthas. And Prabhupada writes that the grossest of the anartha is sex desire. So we are on second chapter, 12th verse of the second canto. Here. Somebody is asking. Kamakshi Mataji is asking. Okay. So the grossest type of anartha, Prabhupada writes, is sex desire. And he is not telling about the gross sex desire. Prabhupada writes what is the manifestation of this desire, sex desire? Profit, adoration, and distinction. He's talking about the subtle sex desire, which is much, much difficult to give up. But then Prabhupada writes, when we meditate, when we practice devotional service, slowly we get purified. And how to get purified? Prabhupada writes, one has to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. That is the beginning of meditation. As third canto Kapila describes, Sanchintayed Bhagavatas Charanarvindam Vajrankushadvajasaro Ruhalanchanadhyam Uttunga Rakta Vilasan Nakachakravala Jyotsna Bhirahatamahadridayandakaram. So in this, Kapil Dev is telling one should meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. So after dharana, the meditation becomes more and more focused. So that is the difference between dharana and dhyan. Dharana means the general meditation, seeing the Lord as a whole. But now a devotee has to focus on every limb of the Lord. That is called dhyan. More focused meditation is called the dhyan. So what is the advantage of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord? The lotus feet of the Lord, which is marked with so many of the symbols, it can purify the heart of a devotee. There is a mountain of sins which we have accumulated. It is like a huge mountain, and nobody can destroy a mountain by small weapons. It requires a thunderbolt. So the lotus feet of the Lord, they act like thunderbolt. They can destroy the darkness of ignorance which is there in the heart of everyone. So Prabhupada writes that just like one should meditate on the feet of the Lord first and then go up, one should not directly jump to the 10th canto, which is like lotus face of the Lord. One should not jump into the Ras Leela pastimes. Unless we are purified of lust, anger, greed, one should meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. Go right from the first canto all the way up to the 10th canto. So that's how Ashtanga Yogi, by his constant meditation, gets purified and focuses his mind completely on the Supreme Lord. So after describing this, now Shukadeva Goswami describes that a Ashtanga Yogi who still has material desires, he meditates on the Virat Rupa of the Lord. Because the problem is, conditioned souls, they have so many desires to enjoy, and most of the time they are not serious in taking to spiritual life. They are not serious in going back to spiritual world. They are just engrossed in sense gratification. Somehow or other, by association of devotees or by some pious activity, they may come to spiritual life, but still for them to take to the personal features of the Lord, it is very, very difficult. So therefore, they start with meditating on the Virat Rupa. What is this Virat Rupa in short? Virat Rupa means the entire universe. It is compared with the body of the Lord. As we discussed in the last class also, there are 14 planetary systems. You imagine It is basically imagination, but it is a bona fide imagination. One cannot imagine anything. One has to imagine that, okay, highest planetary system, Satyaloka, it is compared to the head of the Lord. Then going down, Bhuvar Loka, Bhuloka, waist of the Lord. Lower planets, they are like the feet of the Lord. In this way, this material minded spiritualist, it is not, he's not completely free of the material desires. He cannot conceive of anything apart from material features of the Lord. So therefore he is told, okay, you consider this entire universe as the body of the Lord and you meditate on it. What will happen? Gradually, by having such type of meditation, he will be purified. And then Shukdev Goswami describes how advanced yogi leaves the body. So first of all, this Ashtanga yogi who is having no material desires, a detached yogi, he practices yama. Yama means rules and regulations, do's and don'ts. Then niyama, he and sits in a proper asana. Then he practices pranayam. With the pranayam, he controls the mind. And with the controlled mind, he avoids any type of sense gratification. And then after this, that is called pratyahara, he attains a stage of dharana. Dharana means meditating on the form of the Lord. Now at this point, if this Ashtanga yogi has desires, then he cannot worship the Paramatma feature of the Lord. He has to worship the Virat Rupa. But if he has no material desires, then he can meditate on the Paramatma. And then after meditating on the Paramatma feature of the Lord, he focuses his mind more and more on the various limbs of the Lord and attains Samadhi. And this process of attaining Samadhi, what is the Samadhi? Means merging the mind into the intelligence. So basically, so this yogi, he makes a sankalpa. He tells that actually, I no longer need this material mind. I no longer need this material intelligence. So he requests the intelligence to merge in the, he requests the intelligence that, okay, I don't need my material mind. So please take back the mind. So mind merges in the intelligence. Intelligence merges in the soul, and then soul merges in the super soul. All technical details are described. We will not go into the details of that. And this is called as Labdhopashanti. Labdhopashanti means this Ashtanga yogi, he is now completely fixed in Brahman. Nobody can disturb him. He's not disturbed by any type of sense objects. He's not disturbed by any distractions. He's completely fixed in Brahman. He's not affected by the modes of material nature. He's not affected by any transformations of the material nature. That is called as Labdhopashanti. And then this Ashtanga yogi, he performs something called as Shat Chakra Yoga. So what is this Shat Chakra Yoga? It is a very famous concept. People, they try to do this Shat Chakra Yoga sitting in the city life. It is not possible. Before Shat Chakra Yoga, you have to perform all these Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. Then you can do Shat Chakra Yoga. And in that Shat Chakra Yoga, the Ashtanga yogi sits in a proper position and plugs the anus, evacuating hole with the heel of his feet, and then progressively moves the life air up from the lowermost chakra, which is called as Muladhara Chakra. Slowly he moves his life air up from Muladhara Chakra, then to Swadhisthana Chakra, which is situated at the navel, then Manipura Chakra at the chest, then Anahat Chakra, which is in the heart, then he comes to the throat where Vishuddha Chakra is there, and then ultimately he raises his life air up and then pushes that life air and his soul out of Brahma Randhra, and he can go to a destination wherever he desires. So if he is completely purified, he attains Brahman. Prabhupada writes that actually this is all very technical, mechanical process, and in today's age, very few of us can do it. Very, very difficult. In olden days, it was like common affair. Prabhupada writes, but in modern days, very difficult, impossible practically. So therefore, best is chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And a devotee actually is not dependent on any of these paths. Naite sriti parth janan yogi muhyati kashana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna, as Krishna tells to Arjuna in the 8th chapter, last verse. A devotee is not disturbed by, oh, when will I give up my body? How will I give up my body? Will I attain perfection? Will devotees chant for me at the time of death? That is not our consideration. We should be concerned with taking to the process of devotional service properly when we are living. What will happen at the time of death? Nobody can say. And then, the Ashtanga Yogi who still has desire, what happens to him? Then he goes through a process called Krama Mukti. So basically, Virat Rupa meditator, because he has material desires, although he wants to attain liberation only, but it is like a person who is traveling from Mumbai to Delhi in a train. And then on the certain station, he sees something interesting to eat. He gets down on the train, he's eating that, train goes. Okay, next train comes, he takes that train, again gets down at another station. Again, he is interested in something else, eats that. So he is progressing, but the progress is very, very slow. Ultimately, he attains liberation. Ultimately, he reaches Delhi. So this Ashtanga Yogi, he also goes through a lots of detour. He goes through a planet called Vaishwanara. From there, he goes to Shishumar planetary system. And Shishumar is a constellation basically. It is described in great detail in the 5th canto. And then to Maharaloka, and he stays there till the end of the day of Brahma. Then at the end of day of Brahma, what happens? Ananta Shesha starts emitting fire. Then he takes a spacecraft, goes to the upper planetary system, or transfers himself by his mystic power to Satyaloka, where Brahmaji lives, Brahmaloka. There he stays till the end of the life of Brahma. And then Shukdev Goswami describes the quality of Brahmaloka. What happens there? So in Brahmaloka, there is no misery, no old age, no death, no anxiety. Only one anxiety is there. Sometimes the sages of Brahmaloka, they are so very distressed out of compassion. When they see people in lower planetary systems enjoying sense gratification, they become sad. So after spending whole life in Brahmaloka along with Brahma, ultimately when Brahmaji dies, the entire universe is getting destroyed now. So this Ashtanga Yogi, he also pierces the 5 material coverings, pierces the layer of false ego, pierces the layer of Mahatattva, Pradhan, and then merges in the Brahman. So in this way, Shukdev Goswami says, I have described to you the 2 paths. And then after describing all these paths of Ashtanga Yoga, now Shukdev Goswami is going to give his own opinion and to the answer of this, to the question of Parikshit Maharaj, what is the duty of a dying man? Nahi ato anya shiva pantha vishaya samsrita viha Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yogo Yato Bhavet. So it is described, Nahiyato Anya Shiva Panta. Shukdev Goswami says, there is no better means, no more auspicious means of deliverance. Vishata Samshrita Viha. For those who are wandering in the material nature, there is only one way to get delivered. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yogo Yato Bhavet. Only by practice of devotional service one can attain perfection of life. And Srila Prabhupada writes that, of all the yogis, the devotee is the supreme. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. So why to endeavor for anything else? Just go straight to the process of devotional service. Shukdev Goswami is saying that. And then he says, actually, Krishna, Brahmaji, he is giving his verdict after studying the Vedas 3 times. Bhagavan Brahma Kartsnena Triran Viksha Manishaya Tad Adhyavasyat Kutasto Ratiratman Yato Bhavet. Brahmaji studied the Vedas 3 times and then he came to such conclusion that Bhakti is the supreme. So why to go for anything else? So therefore, sadhan bhakti is the most auspicious path, and one should hear and practice devotional service. Tasmat sarvatmana rajan hari sarvatra sarvada shrotavya kirtitavyasya smartavyo bhagavan nrinam. What is this sadhan bhakti all about? Shrotavya, kirtitavya and smartavya. These 3 limbs of devotional service, they come again and again. In the first canto also, Tasmat sarvatmana rajan hari sarvatra sarvaja tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan ishvaro hari shrotavya kirtitavyascha dheya pujyascha nityada. The same 3 words have come, hearing, chanting and remembering. Tasmad bharat sarvatma bhagavan ishvaro hari shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyascha ichchata bhayam. Shukdev Goswami told in the first chapter. So these 3 limbs are most important limbs of sadhana bhakti. What will be the benefit of practicing sadhana bhakti? Pibanti ye bhagavat atmana katham kathamritam shravana puteshu samhritam punanti te vishaya vidushita shayam vrajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. Pibanti, those who drink through their ears this Bhagavat Katha, Katha Amrita, when they drink this nectar of Hari Katha through their ears, Shravana Puteshu, what happens? 2 things happen. Punanti te vishaya vidushita shayam, they purify their polluted aim of life. Prajanti tacharana saroruhantikam, and then they attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. They go back to garden. So this is the end of this chapter. So we'll stop here. We'll not take questions because now the Prabhupada disappearance festival is going to start. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.